Hi, and welcome to In the Metal. In the Metal is a new podcast stroke videocast, and it's where myself, Johnny McElherron of the Watch Press, stroke Irish Watch Guy, who have specialised in independent watchmaking, writing, telling the story about, and bringing those brands, those names to greater awareness, and just being part of that wider media platform that helps to introduce a lot of these independent superstars to a wider audience. In the Middle is basically informal, chill, laid back kind of conversation where I will be having a chat along with my very special sidekick, who will be joining us in one moment. And but to introduce him, this is a guy who has already toured the world many, many times. Heavy metal, thrash metal, Hellraiser with Anthrax, 30 million album sales, 3 Grammy nominations, and now a champion of independent watchmaking in the United States of America. I want to see, what does this button do? Hello.
I'm the sidekick.
Hey. It's all scripted here, man, you know.
I'm the funny little sidekick. We play good guy, bad guy routine.
What?
Good to see you, Johnny. Good to be back on the show, In the Metal. Telling it like it is to the world, giving you some truthful, incredible insight to some of our planet's most amazing micro mechanics, also known as watchmakers and master watchmakers. Things that we can bring things to the world and to collectors and people interested in this or might be new to what independent watchmaking is, and give them some insight into what's usually not seen, never seen before, and from one watchmaker to another, the ability for someone such as myself and Johnny to pull those little things out that could be quite funny, or things that are quite interesting in the techniques we use to manufacture in our, from our cave to your wrist. So that's what we're here for. And today, my goodness, right, Johnny, who we have today? Oh my goodness.
This is this is a coup for us, Danny, because this is a watchmaker who almost 10 years ago, she was nominated for Grand Prix GPHD award, and with her absolutely unique take on the plane of how to of what you can do with a watch movement. And as I said, she is Eva Leube, and we would like to say hello, Eva, and welcome to you. How are you?
Hi, Johnny. Hi, Dan. Good to speak to you. Thanks for inviting me today. Awesome.
Hi, Eva. Good to see you.
Who would have thought? Yeah, good to see you. I can't believe I'm talking to you, Dan. I had your albums, right? In my first apartment in Berlin, I had Dan's albums. I'm the man.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Different days back then, huh? Different days.
So right off the bat, usually I wait to talk about music till the very end of the show, but okay, so we all know that Eva is a metalhead, so she's already stamped the forehead with coolness before we even started the interview today. So for all of you who think that watchmakers sit around and we're in complete silence all the time, or we don't have a past of coolness like Eva, if you're a woman watchmaker, I could pretty much state right now, you'll never be as cool as Eva. Don't even bother trying. She's a metalhead. She's a master watchmaker. She's the first person I asked Johnny to call for an interview, because that's what I think of Eva's craft, what she does. She is the top of the top of the top of the top. And take away that she's a female, it doesn't matter. She's the top of the top of the top. So if you don't know who she is, you're gonna know who she is in this show, because you don't really have a choice. She is what she does is mind blowing, and this is going to be a very, very interesting story. and an incredible avenue for us to give you some insight into her crazy little head.
It surely is.
I love this introduction. You can just keep going. I love it.
I
will. He's a lot smoother than I am at it. So but Eva, as I said, go ahead, Dan. I was just saying about Eva. What she has done is you have to consider what you are, Eva, is a pioneer in your field, because as well as challenging, and I know this is a sensitive issue to start off with, but it is a very male-oriented industry, or at least the facade of it is. I know that behind the scenes, in a lot of the ateliers, you look at photographs of most of the big brands, there's an equal division of labour going on in the workshops, but front of house, in the watch industry, there's not too many have done what you have done, and you are a role model for kids. Like, you just met my daughter there 10 minutes ago, and she can't believe what you have achieved. And as well as Sylvia, my wife Sylvia, we've written an article today in Watch Press, which is there for regarding your amazing Ari watch. So it's a real honour to have you on board. And myself and Dan obviously are delighted that you accepted our invitation. We look forward to finding out what challenges you faced in the whole concept of your watch. And in the next few minutes, we're going to put up an image or two of your watch so as people can get an idea of what we're talking about. And so you won't be sorry to see myself and Dan's face disappearing for a moment or two. There's a nice watch put over it, but we'll have to make our apologies for you. Okay.
So what I want to start with is let's go way back when you were really young, because people should know that you were started watchmaking at an extremely young age, and not just an interest in watchmaking, but you fiercely dove at it at a time where I can relate to, because I'm just a little old man. When independent watchmaking, we didn't have our own TV channel, right? We didn't have our own YouTube channel and Instagrams, places to place our pictures or anything. We were literally behind the scenes, and our role models were, if we could find a ghost builder like Paul Gerber, we had heard about him or saw a little picture of him in a magazine or something, someone like that, or we just wanted to head out into after sales service, because in a million years we didn't think we could be a Paul Gerber, because it was an impossibility back then when you and I were really starting out. So your story is an interesting story. So tell us, I know you started when you were about 16 years old. You were already in watch school, right?
I started my apprenticeship when I was 16. Yeah. And then at 23, I went on to a master school in Hildesheim. And I finished with my master's certificate, even though there was a lot of partying going on. But fun times. And after that, I went to work in a couple of different countries. And in every workshop, I learned different things. I learned new things in every workshop. So my first station was in Switzerland, where I worked for fourth generation family owned watchmaking business, and that was very interesting. The father, he was retired, but he still had his workshop next to where I was, and you could go and visit him and ask him questions, and he would walk past the wall of clocks, and he would say, there's something wrong with this clock, and he would describe what it was, and he had what he was doing is he took grandfather clocks. He did the movements up, and he pasted them into perspex cases to hang them up to just admire, to be able to admire the movement inside. Awesome. and he had. I couldn't believe when I saw it, but he made every single tool that he was using. He had made himself during his apprenticeship, except for a lathe, which was a little hand turning lathe.
Right.
Everything else he had made himself. Very special, yeah. And then after that, I took on a job in Cape Town in South Africa with Kronos Master Watchmakers. With Jochen Dietrich. There were very special times. There was sort of half self-employed, you know, a bit like a subcontractor, nearly call it. Yeah, special times. I met some top people out there, very lovely people, and they were really good years. But you always had, all the crime every day. But also all the spectacular natural beauty right next to it at the same time, you know. Crazy times. And then
So you were doing Rolexes down there. That's what. So you,
yeah.
When you were
also
okay.
I was doing everything, repairs and restoration. But we were also the only place who had the Rolex agency in the whole of the Western Cape.
How did you end up there from coming out of a German school, and how did you end up all the way down? Yeah.
I don't know. I had the travel bug, and you know, in Switzerland, after a couple of years there, I started to write applications, you know, and sent them to different countries. I don't know. I just looked it up in watchmaking magazines. Or I don't know where you found them.
It looked like it was,
and I just.
It looked like it was warm with palm trees, and you just said, "Yeah, that's for me" for a while.
I wanted to go to an English-speaking country. Yeah.
Okay.
How old was I there? Was it late 90s? I don't remember how. Maybe 26 or something. I don't know. So I went there, and then I had a really good time. And I met really good people, as I said before. But there was also a lot of crime, and in the end, that there started to be bombs going off, you know, aimed at American-based businesses like Planet Hollywood or Harley or something. And eventually, during my time in South Africa, I went to do vocational training at Rolex, right? To be trained. I paid my own way and everything. I just wanted to mention that, you know. And when I was in Geneva for that training, they asked me, come work for us in Johannesburg. To which I replied, I don't want to die yet. To which they replied, we're just setting up a center in Sydney. How about Sydney? And so I went back to Cape Town, and I worked there for another year. And then when it got really, you know, dangerous, eventually I took that job offer in Sydney, and I moved to Sydney pretty much straight away. Didn't really have much of a break in between or something.
And was that for another Rolex service center, or were you?
And that was for Rolex. That was for Rolex, and yeah.
The place in Cape Town and the place in Australia, were you just single-handedly handling all the Rolex, and or were you seeing all kinds of other stuff come across your bench?
In South Africa, we were a workshop that handled any sort of repairs and restorations, and I did all of that. And we had the Rolex agencies, so a bit of everything. And then in Sydney, it was the Rolex service center in Sydney. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was then just Rolex for the next couple of years. And when I arrived there, I had to get used to, you know, being able to, I mean, I loved it. I had to get used to being able to walk around the street at any hour of the day, you know, without having to turn around all the time to see if someone's sneaking up behind you or something.
Right.
Yeah? So, yeah.
That was good. So how long were you in Australia?
In Sydney.
How long were you in Sydney?
So I moved there in 2000, and so I was with Rolex till 2004, and it was a great time. I had super colleagues. It was a ton of fun. You know, the Rolex the training, Rolex training is very solid, you know, very thorough. And plus we had a good time. Is that right, Serge?
Yeah, Rolex training is something. I had a Rolex instructor when I was at WOSTEP in Neuchâtel, and it was one of the first days, and he was from Rolex, the Rolex instructor. It was a weird course at that time, and he
what was his name?
Peter something, can't remember his last name, but what he did was he gave us every Rolex movement, you know, including Daytona chronograph and all that, and the old Zenith, and he said, take them all apart, you know, let me see what you can do, you know, and then bring them up to my bench. And so everyone is, you know, taking them apart, and excuse me, and I took all of them apart. You know, everything is in my perfect OCD line of every little part, so I can remember where everything goes in every little box. And I bring up all the movements to him, and he looks at me. He goes, Spitz. Takes them all up, back to your bench, put them back together, and he went like that, you know, like all of them are mixed together. So I know Rolex training can be a little bit like that. So it gives you an incredible foundation, because as we know, Rolex is built so well, it almost falls together when you put it together. It's like no other watch.
That's right.
So
that's right.
They're just, I mean, how many other watches really can run dry, you know? So it's a great training, and then you've given us a good background of your solidity in your training from a master, you know, all the way through, you know, working in a clock store where a guy could walk past the clock and know what's wrong with it by listening to it. That's like, you know, a guy, you know, who knows he's a Porsche mechanic, and you pull up your Porsche and he doesn't even have to open your hood. He knows what's wrong. It's the same principle. And when we're young watchmakers, it kind of blows us away. You know, the old guys, they blow us like, how do you know that? But that only comes from sitting at the bench and having that experience. And that's what I try to tell and convey in this show to collectors and other watchmakers is, you can come out of school and have that dream of, all I want to do is be an independent watchmaker because it's the big thing now, let's say. But without sitting at the bench for all the years that you've sat at the bench to gain that knowledge before you build your own timepiece, you know, we have to learn that. So when we build our own timepiece, we build in that longevity, that robustness that I always say, you know, the wheels in my timepiece I'm making here are 5 times thicker than they should be, 10 times, you know, like a Roger W. Smith type wheel. We build pocket watches for the wrist. You see how she's shaking her head, Johnny? It's
yeah, absolutely.
She built her watch. But we'll get to that. So that background of sitting at the bench, you know, there's nothing like it. And yeah, you might have to do 5 or 10 years of suffering. So if you're an attorney or a doctor watching this and you're a collector and you wonder why there's so many years behind what Eva does, you know, it's not just the school of 4 years and then another 2 years and then there's special courses. It's another 10 years of apprenticeship, and we almost still don't know what we're doing. If we haven't found our exact direction of where we want to go, are we a chronograph person? Are we a tourbillon person? Are we just keep it simple because we already did all that? I want to go back to, you know, a solid watch that will last for 1,000 years with basic service. And, you know, where are you on that map? Once you find that, sitting at that bench all pays off. Because I mean, I did after sales service, like same with you, seeing all kinds of things, all the A shield movements and all those old, you know, movements with my grandfather, and then all the way through after all my schooling, and nothing, you know, that was the best preparation of anything. It's just trying to figure out problems across the board. So I saw many pictures when I was just a young tadpole watchmaker. Same size I am now, but I was a young tadpole, and I'm looking through the magazines, and I saw pictures of you in your shop with your Sierra F1, and that was in Australia. So it looks like you split from Rolex. You must have been getting the dream, something you were seeing. You were either seeing pictures of Peter Gerber's triple rotor or something. What triggered your female watchmaking brain to go, I'm going for it? There is something that called independent watchmaking, which that word wasn't invented back then yet. It's kind of like me with music, with thrash metal. There was just heavy metal. There was no word yet until someone heard that kind of music. So what triggered your brain to go, I have an idea. I want to go for this. I want to build my own timepiece and sell it and be my own brand, be my own person. Where was that turning point?
Well, at the end of my time in Sydney, the first half, there's more coming. I didn't go straight from Rolex to making my own watches. There's more. Towards the end, I did a marathon in Canberra, and as you know, when you do a marathon, you run around with a big grin on your face for a whole week, and also what it does to you is you all of a sudden you think that you were born for more. and so I started thinking what could be the next step, and someone told me about Thomas Prescher and what he's doing, and I looked into it and I found it fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I thought, wow, that is something that I have to get into, And so I started contacting Thomas first, and a couple of other AHCI members, and most of them didn't need anyone, or they couldn't hire anybody because they were at the beginning, of their career as independent watchmakers. I'm sure that they all had years and years of experience, with repairs and restorations and stuff. So in the end, I had a lot of conversations. In the end, I took a job offer from Ulysse Nardin, who wanted someone to go to Florida, and I thought that sounds pretty cool as well, And Ulysse Nardin at that time, there was something like in between an independent watchmaker and an established company like Rolex or Patek. They were Patek. They were sort of in between. They had all these crazy models coming out, and they still had a lot of teasing problems. A lot of little things that needed to be adjusted and fixed. They were sort of in between, and so I went to Florida to work for them for a while, and I loved that brand. I loved their watches, and so in the end, I didn't stay on because there was a problem with the visa, not my visa, but for somebody else. And also the more intricate pieces, the interesting pieces, they sent them all back to Le Locle,
right,
to headquarters, And that's one thing about Ulysse Nardin, is they're very structured, and they separate the work, So one watchmaker does one model and nothing else. In Rolex, you get all the different models of that brand to service them, for variety. Not at Ulysse Nardin. You have one model that you're specializing in, and
so how long did you work? How long did you work there?
Just a bit over a year.
And that was in Boca Raton. I've been to that workshop a few times in Boca.
Yeah.
When they were having some problems with the Freak, which they were repairing there. So I came in there for a little while.
When was that?
Mid 2000s. Probably right after you left. That's something that's really interesting what you said, because I don't know if people are new to collecting and they don't know the history of that company. They truly were one of the we can say they were independent, but they really weren't. But they were doing the crazy stuff like the Freak before we were freaks. yeah, they took risks. They were like a corporate entity that would take risks and really put it out there. And and at that point in time, there were risks, I think, where they didn't even know who would repair those watches, because there was a shortage of what you and I do at that level of repairing complications. Yeah. And what you said also applied to where I worked at Chopard in Genève. It's the same thing. Once at a time, I could do all the Luke timepieces, and I was involved with the pre-release of the Quattro, which was back then unheard of to do a 4-barrel timepiece back then. So I was there for longevity testing and all kinds of things. So I can do all the loops and all the perpetual calendars and all those. But once you got up there, it was the same scenario. It was one person working on one timepiece, if it was a perpetual with a chronograph or something like that. Because as we know, there's so many problems and intricacies with those timepieces that you can only learn over doing it time after time and seeing 10, 12, 15 of those timepieces, where you can gain your speed to repair them over a year's time. So everyone should realize it's not like the company is locking that watchmaker in and you only fix this. It's because they get so complicated. You have to know all the intricacies of, was it a manufacturing intricacy, or was it another watchmaker that was in there, most common thing he would touch that he shouldn't be touching time after time. You start to see that if you do 10 or 15 of the same timepieces. So it's best to have one watchmaker just do that. But that's not what you were built for. It makes sense,
it makes sense.
It makes sense, but
the efficient way.
It's a great job if you live in Switzerland and that's what you want. That fits your MO. But for someone like you, that doesn't fit. And it's someone like me, that doesn't fit. I need to consistently be learning and be challenged by all new things all the time. So you went on from there. And by the way, I would just like to mention that Boca Raton, my eldest daughter is in the ICU unit now, in the COVID unit, running the ventilators for everyone. And she's there in Boca now, right there at Boca West Medical. Boca West Medical. So I have a very, very, very good tie to Boca, and I previously lived right near there for many years, and just recently moved up here. So you were in warm Boca again. You went from warm to warm to warm climate, and you're looking at Thomas pressure.
I went back to cold because during that whole time I was still in contact with Thomas. Because at the same time as I signed the contract with Ulysse Nardin, that was at Baselworld, I went to meet them there at Baselworld, and at the same time, Thomas said that he can now hire someone. And
what was he working on? Was it the multi-axis tourbillon at that time, or?
Yeah. That was one of his first exhibitions there in Baselworld. And I said to him, Thomas, I just signed on with Ulysse Nardin 5 minutes ago. That was crazy. But during that whole time with Ulysse Nardin, I still was in contact with Thomas and his wife Heike. And I was really keen on working with them, really, really keen, And then in the end, when we had those visa problems, not for me but for somebody else, I decided against it, and I took on a job offer with Thomas, and that just opened up a whole new world for me, completely.
Thomas's watches, they're like abstract art almost. Thomas's approach to his design, his aesthetics, and to the technical, the watchmaking as well. So for you to go from a company like Rolex and pass through Ulysse Nardin and then on and find yourself at the door of Thomas Pressure. Wow, such a contrast of environments to find yourself in. And
it was the marathon, that did it. It was the marathon that did it.
Oh, you did it. Yeah, I could do anything. That's a brilliant it's fantastic background to this. So this came to you from your training for your marathon, for actually doing the marathon, and to changing your mindset and to change your goals that you can that you can achieve whatever you
The
set
mindset
out
is
to do.
everything, yeah.
He
Yeah,
opened,
without a doubt.
I find these stories when I talk to each and every watchmaker that's an independent. They reach someone somewhere that really changes that roadmap. That's why I asked you to start at the beginning. Someone who just opens their mind, because they were looking to open their mind the whole time. They might not have been ready in their skill set. They might wanted to learn more. It might be something in their personal life that took them in the wrong direction. But all in all, then it's like a messenger is sent somewhere, and those doors, they just swing open, and you're like you're probably looking, could be looking at something on his bench, or how he thinks, or how he works is so different that you just go, I can do it. This is sick what this guy is doing. Like, it's crazy what he's doing. It's unbelievable. Why didn't I come here a long time ago? Why didn't I? And you question a lot of yourself, which you should.
Now you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready for it.
You got to be ready. You had to have run that marathon to get to his marathon, because at that point in time, some people as old as you and I, and well, actually, as me, I won't say you.
Just
again,
we're still. I'm not old.
we're still looking at magazines back then. All right, this is pre-internet. This is where, like I always say, it's like when I was a musician, we'd open up the album and just stare at the pictures and go, what kind of strings are on that guitar that Joe Perry from Aerosmith is using, or what kind of tuning pegs. It's the same thing. As watchmakers, we do the same thing. Back then we were looking at magazines, and for me it was Paul Gerber looking at the triple rotor, making something in his house that was unheard of. That triggered me to have a want and a need to do what I wanted to do eventually, where I am now. And of course, pressure was in all the magazines back then, but they were little glimpses, because he's a Wile E. Coyote super genius. If you know those cartoons, he's off the map. So I want everyone to know that you're not just looking at a normal watchmaker here. She's like, it's like sitting in taking lessons from Van Halen. If you're a guitar player, that's where she was allowed to hang out. And then not only get guitar lessons, but Van Halen would show her how he built the Marshall amplifier that got him his sound. Because he'll give her those secrets to pass on. That's how generous these people are behind the scenes in watchmaking. We share. That's what this show is about: sharing knowledge, not just a story, but telling how others help someone along the way, just pass on that knowledge that a lot of times is kept a secret, especially in the old days. The only way for me to learn what I learned back then, before the internet, was to somehow get through those Swiss borders. As an American, there were schools here, but never happened. You never learned correctly back then. I had to somehow be the first American to get in a complication room in Switzerland, at show parts, somehow, some way. Luckily, there was a lot of metalheads there, so they eventually let me in.
That was your mindset. I mean, you've been out in the field. You've been out there. You've done all that stuff that you've done with your band. And you didn't.
Yeah, well, I'm not someone who when someone says you can't do that, that's usually where I'm going. So I'm kind of that kind of personality. So you sat with, how long did you sit with Thomas? And so you're sitting there looking at tourbillons on his desk, before tourbillons with tourbillons like little cheesecakes on everyone's desk. What everyone should realize, the old time, nobody can make a tourbillon time.
No, well, he knew my background. He knew where I was coming from, and that I didn't know a lot of stuff that he might have needed. But they were very generous, him and his wife Heike, and he taught me everything. We started from scratch, He had just started his business a year or two before or something, I think. And we started from scratch. We went over the drawings, we discussed the drawings, and then we started on the different parts. In the beginning, a lot of the parts were still handmade, and bit by bit, as the money started coming in, we started to buy a couple of raw parts that we then made to fit and finish them and so. But, We went step by step, all the way, and he shared all his knowledge with me. I learned everything that I knew then of him. It was awesome. They were my best employed years, I must say, ever. And we worked.
Wow.
That was the time before kids for me,
Right.
And so we worked long hours every day, and on the weekends, sometimes. But it didn't matter because it was a ton of fun, and there was so much growth. I learned so much every day. We ran into challenges every day.
So were you starting to get
a technical problem or problems with suppliers or material or whatever, learning skills, anything, but it was fun. Every day there was growth and a lot of learning. It's awesome.
Were you starting to get the ideas for your timepiece while you were there, or was that afterwards?
That was afterwards. But I mean, during my entire career, as a watchmaker, you often get asked, "What's your favorite watch?" And I often thought about it because I like different parts of all kinds of watches. And I was thinking, what would my watch look like, And then after my years with Thomas, I had my first son, and then I found myself at home for the first time, and I didn't fancy being a housewife, so I bought my machines of Herr Hessig in Burgdorf. I think every watchmaker in the Swiss-German part knows him. So he's got showrooms full of perfectly looked after old machines. He has anything. I have to visit him again. So I bought my machines and I started thinking about planning my own watch, now that I was at home with my baby, And then I met someone by accident or not. I met someone who supplied me with a 3D drawing program that I started to teach myself. And I started thinking about what my perfect watch would look like, And I often thought, when you have those beautiful old watches, and the old ones, they often have closed case backs, yeah. And when you open them as a watchmaker, that whole miniature world, this wonderland, pops open, and you get to see it, and it's perfectly finished, with so much attention to detail, that you think the owner of the watch never gets to see that. I often thought that was sad, and I often took pics. That was later on. Back then we didn't have mobile phones, but later on I often took photos and sent it to the owners, just to show them, and they were delighted, But so I
have to see what's inside the watch.
So I thought I want my mechanism to be visible, and not with the case, not through the case back where you have to take your watch off, and then clean it on your shirt and show it, But I wanted to be visible from the front, and I wanted to have a movement in one line, and I wanted to have big wheels and a big balance, and so I wanted to make it to curve around the wrist, That was my idea. And then I started thinking about. Then I started with little drawings, and I started thinking about how can I actually make something like this, because to someone out of the watchmaking world, it would look like pretty much a normal looking watch, except that it's a little bit bent, and that's it, But no, when you have a curved movement, everything has to be changed inside,
Johnny, put up a picture of some of Eva's work.
Yeah, I think it's about time to introduce Eva's watch. And I know, Eva, you were telling me before we went live that the images that you sent me yesterday are prototype. So, but
Yeah.
is it okay? You're happy enough that we show the long one there? So, what happens here? So, yeah, let's just continue to talk about it while it's wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's
So
the prototype. That's a prototype that I showed 2011 in Basel. And here again, Thomas helped me out because I started working on that watch from home in Sydney. I moved back to Sydney after I had my first son. We moved back to Sydney, and then I started to work on that watch. And normally with the HCI, how it works is you have to show your work that you want to exhibit with them, and then
yes.
they decide whether or not you can exhibit with them the next year, you know. And once this piece was almost finished, I called up Thomas again and I said, Thomas, I'm making a watch and it's nearly ready, and I'd love to exhibit with the HCI as a candidate, you know, in this year basically. And he put it to them, and some of them said no because we haven't even seen it. And Thomas told them, you know, if Eva tells me that she's working on a cool watch and that she's gonna have it ready for Basel, I'm going to believe her, you know.
Wow.
So I have a lot to be grateful for, you know, with Thomas. And that's how I ended up exhibiting in Basel in 2011.
He's like your big brother. So yeah, now Johnny's starting to show some pictures of how you work, the inside and the movement. And that's the part that kind of touches me and blows me away, because I was again in WOSTEP in a complication course in Neuchâtel, and there was a teacher was taking over for 2 or 3 weeks. I think somebody was sick or something, and I went up to him and he was working on something on his desk, and I had never seen anything like this. And remember, I grew up around watches my whole life because my grandfather was a watchmaker and jeweler.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is that? Because it's like the main plate is like yours on the bench, kind of, but it's not round. It's like this, and it's big. I mean, it's big, and I'm like, that's really amazing. Like, what is that? Like, how? And he's like, and it was partly apart, and he told me it was a Movado Magnaplan, and I'm like, never seen it. What is it? He goes, Dan, I got to make some parts for this, and I have no clue how I'm going to do it. And this is the teacher.
Wow.
And the watch may seem simplistic, but it is far from simplistic to put wheels on multiple planes without, you know, teeth have to mesh on the same plane. For anybody that's listening, that's watching or can understand this. So once you move the wheels, I mean, how are they supposed to intersect and wear correctly, and, you know, not have backlash and all that? So it becomes a very complex. A simple thing becomes very complex. And I saw that, and it just blew me away, and it never left my mind, that timepiece, because who would think, like, Movado? This is 1910, where this stems back to, and not the Gruen. We all know about the Gruen Curve X. That's not a curved movement. That's a curved case. But this is the basis of just it's difficult watchmaking way back when, and your timepiece destroys that. It just takes it to another stratosphere, through the black hole, through the black hole on the other side, through another black hole. You know, you have your own. It's your own timepiece. So I want people to know what Eva's done really has nothing to do with that timepiece, but it definitely has to be mentioned because it is part of our historical watchmaking pedigree and past. Yeah. But you've taken that and the thought that you put into this timepiece. Your timepiece should be like on the cover of every magazine forever, because the accomplishment you've made is mind-blowing to other watchmakers. And you need to know that you did make, and you do make, a huge impact to all of us. We all know you, we all see you. We need to get you. You're top tier.
Brilliant.
If you're looking
That's
for, because I see people what they've written, what they write about other people, watchmakers, art, and we have art. Okay, let's get this straight. What we do is art. If you don't like it, fine. You know what? There's another artist for you, just like a painter. You don't like one person's, like Salvador Dali, then you'll like somebody else. But Johnny, put that picture up. Put that picture back up. That's a masterpiece. That's a master watchmaker at work at its highest level.
That was the number 1 after the prototype. That was the next watch.
Wow.
It's
I'm trying to have a bigger image.
And I also, people should understand, if they've never heard of you before or haven't seen your timepiece before, that I could say, quite honestly, this is like the first unisex watch, if you know what that word means. It's not for a man, it's not for a woman. Personally, it's one of the only watches without my name that I would wear. It's that badass. So tell us more how you manage. I know you don't use CNC, but tell us more how you in your shop it took you 4 years to develop the movement and get it to work, and it's wonderful that Thomas helped you along the way. Again, that's what I'm trying to show, that we have people that are a pivotal part in our watchmaking life as an independent watchmaker, that they give us their secrets that maybe somebody else gave them, or they took a lot of time out of their life to figure it out on their own, and they don't have to give that to us. It's a secret. They pass it on, and they don't go away. So when Eva has a problem, she picks up the phone, if there was phones back in that time, I don't know, and calls Thomas. Or writes him a letter with a feathered pen. Way back when. I have a problem, Thomas. The ratchet wheel is just not working correctly. So tell us more of the construction of the movement. What train? Was there a train that you based it off of? How did you overcome the placing it on different planes and having the longevity really be long?
I didn't actually have any help from anybody. That was the time after work with Thomas, when I went back to Australia, and nobody actually knew that I was working on anything. A few people knew that I was working on a watch, but that was mainly my family. They're not watchmakers, and during my time with Thomas, I learned everything that I knew. I learned everything off him, and we built his Tempus Vivendi, double retrograde time indication, and the tourbillons. But my watch, I built it completely on my own. I used an old pocket watch movement record 302. And I based the dimensions on that watch, and I used a few parts, but the ones that I used, they were heavily modified, because you have the wheels and the pinions, and once you curve that movement, you run out of space, in there. So everything had to be modified. I used a couple of wheel discs, because they are only 0.26, so you could use them. You didn't have to cut the teeth at an angle. That it was fine to use them like this, But the whole winding mechanism, the whole hand setting mechanism that you've, for instance, seen in another picture where it's like marked in purple, that's all new, And I used a little bit of. Yeah. I used a little bit of CNC in between, because there was a Swiss toolmaker, Jens Frey, who lived not too far from my house, and he had the most complete workshop. It was fantastic, and he let me use his workshop, and he never charged me for anything. Once I put an envelope somewhere between his machines where he'd find it, and the next time he would sneak it back into my bag. Yeah, and he had all the big machines. He had a couple of CNC machines. He had a big Hauser and big lathes and everything, and I could use them freely. And I used them mainly to make holders and blanks, because with a curved part, with a curved, all the curved parts, you couldn't work from sheet metal. So I had to mill blanks out of solid blocks of metal, and I produced, and there in his workshop, I could make as much noise as I wanted, and I could produce as many shavings as I wanted. And I made the massive holders, and I made the blanks, and I mounted them onto the holders, and I also made a couple of tools to use to hold the parts for finishing later on, and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So he had a big. What he had really large milling machines, because for people understand to make a main plate that's not flat, you need a really big piece of brass or German silver, whatever you're going to make it out of. So what Eva is saying is, we really have to get a big piece, and you need a big, heavy machine to cut that piece down. I know you have an Sierra F1 like I have behind me here. They work, but we would have to be shaving and shaving and shaving, because we need to get that main plate with no vibration in that machine. So she was blessed to have someone loan her time in their incredible shop with the larger machines, and that's what a lot of us have to do. You got to do what you got to do. She was very lucky to get someone like that to manufacture herself a main plate like no one had done before.
Wow. There's a lot of that collaborative spirit I find in the independent watchmaking community. That one guy will help out another person, or if from the way that it's evolving now, where we have Carrie with his dials, and if it's Andres Strehler or Tyler with Concepto, or if there's an interaction between the different independents. Now, I know maybe comparing.
I had no interaction with anybody.
How did you manage to get all the material and parts and metal that you needed all the way to Australia? Because I know that's a huge struggle. I have a friend who is manufacturing timepieces in Australia now, and he has the same struggle that I have here in the United States. We can't even get the right metal here or anything. So and we can't buy small quantities of it.
I sourced it all there. I mean, when I went to the shop, I asked for a certain type of brass. They couldn't even tell me what type of brass it was exactly, but
Yeah.
I tried it out and it worked. And plus I had that Swiss toolmaker. He had a bit of knowledge behind him. He told me a lot about materials. But I got the silver steel. I got that from Switzerland. I brought that over from Switzerland. Right. I got brown material and sheets of silver steel. You wouldn't get that there, but brass and that's it. And precious metals, you get that there.
Yeah, you can get that. Yeah. So just so everyone,
I was reading a lot of books. I just had all my books and I was reading through them. And I mean, every day I ran into problems, and then I would just grab my books and read, and try to find out by myself how to solve that problem. I didn't really want to talk about it too much because I don't know. It wasn't really. People weren't as interconnected as they're now, and I don't know. I wanted to try out for myself first if I get that thing to work. Anyway, before I come out with it, I wanted to see, does that idea of mine work anyway? And I didn't know till the end.
We all don't know till the end. That's the cool part of it. It's our challenging nature to be, a true independent watchmaker at the top of her game or his game is to challenge yourself beyond what other people can be challenged, like I'm doing here with my new escapement. I'm making the parts, and I just decide, hey, wait a minute. I figured out now finally how to machine the titanium. Why can't I make all the escapement parts out of titanium? Okay, let me make the escape wheel out of titanium. Let me make the pallet of my escapement out of titanium, because it's indefinitely, it won't wear. It'll never ever wear out, and it'll add to rundown time. But we push ourselves is the point of the story. Eva doesn't just make the movement, the main plate. She makes the case. She makes everything all by herself. And that's why
that's what makes it
she's
so
not a
unique.
normal human. she's
You know how I made the case? You know how I made the case? You know how fragile the top is?
Yeah.
You have to mill that out on the Asira F1. I had a blank made by a goldsmith, and then I milled it out. So I mounted it to a round table on the Asira F1, and I made a little container out of paper around that blank, and then I filled it up with candle wax. I filled the whole structure up with candle wax, and then I started milling, so it wouldn't vibrate.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Because otherwise it would just fly off as soon as you touch it.
So your workshop in Australia, you basically had your Asira, you probably had a Shaolin 70 I've seen. You were able to do gear cutting there on your Shaolin? Were you doing cutting gears as well?
Yeah, we made the gears for the hand setting mechanism. We made that Swiss tool at Jens's workshop. We gave it a try. Let's put it that way. It didn't really work out because those gears were thicker, and there the teeth had to be cut at an angle, right? So what we tried is to turn it around and then start milling it out in a smaller diameter up the top, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, if you can imagine what I mean. But the problem is, like cutting it out like a pyramid shape, Mm-hmm. But the problem was that we had to use a very thin mill, so it was maybe 0.25 max, so it would give, and the finished wheel that came out was in diameter larger than I needed it. So in the end, I had to finish every wheel at my workshop in the lathe, by hand, to make it fit. All those wheels were a little bit too big.
And
we did a lot of trial and error.
You made your own cutters to cut those wheels?
I had cutters, yeah. And I made some cutters, yeah.
Wow.
Resourcefulness is incredible, yeah.
It was never boring, I loved it. It was never boring. And in fact, I was thinking the other day, the first watch that I then made for a client, it was such a special time for me, during the time that I made the second one, which still took half the time, because I had my second baby also during the time. And the time was so special that I was thinking a while back, I was thinking I should contact the owner of that watch now, and I should ask him, if he ever wanted to sell it, I'd love to buy it back, because it was attached to that watch,
You can't let go.
You were feeling your way around in the dark, sort of thing. But it was super. There were always friends popping into my workshop, and my boys were there. And they loved it, They thought it was a bit of a camping experience or something. They spent a lot of time in my workshop. They grew up there,
Yeah. But to see this taking shape in front of their eyes, it's quite a thing. I have actually gone and been able to enlarge that image, I think, Dan, that one that was just in the center there. So maybe we could show that there again. This is where you were explaining about how the gears have to interlock. There's an additional dimension to the engineering because it's not the teeth aren't just interlocking on a flat plane. They're having to meet at a tiny angle that is common throughout the whole shape of the piece. Yeah.
Yeah. So the axle of each wheel is pointing towards the center of that circle, right? So they're all at an angle to each other. Because a lot of people ask me about the polyplan and the curvex and so on, but it's got nothing to do with it. I wasn't even thinking of those watches ever before.
Wow.
People ask me about it. Nothing at all, but they all these wheels point to the center of that circle, if you follow that curve.
Yes.
And what else? For instance, if you take the winding stem, if you just kept the straight winding stem, it would poke out the other side. Things like this. You had to come up with new ideas. And there you go. Yeah. Oh yeah. So.
Sorry.
There's a lot of.
Put the other picture back, Johnny. Put that.
The one with the.
That's the one I saw.
You can see parts of the hand setting mechanism. Yeah, they were underneath the barrel and underneath the center wheel, and so
That's crazy.
The setting lever. You see the setting lever? That's a pretty cool contraption.
Yeah.
And all these parts that needed to be by hand. You couldn't do that by CNC. You could maybe a flat lever. You can cut that out by CNC, and then you save a lot of time. And you can.
What Eva's trying to say is, she had to think so far out the box. If someone can understand the setting lever where you set the time, it's straight. So what do you do with a straight setting lever, a stem? Excuse me. That goes into something where it's going to curve. So how do you solve that problem, which is, I'm sure, endless sleepless nights for her laying in her bed trying to go, what am I going to do? How am I going to make a bent stem? Because that's not going to work. It's just the little things that you have to overcome when you're in an area of micromechanics that's never been done before. What you've accomplished, it blows our mind. And you need to know that.
But also to fit the stem, if you want to go back to that picture, just check out the setting that goes over several floors. You have the bottom where the setting lever spring attaches, and then it goes up, and it goes over the stem, and there's a screw that holds the stem in place from the top. But to get it.
One second, I am working magic here. Just you might think I'm just here to be a pretty face inside. I've got a new image. Let's see. How about that?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah.
You see the stem, and then there's that screw. That's what's on top of the setting lever. That's the top bit of the setting lever, and then it goes down to the second screw further down. Because I also had to come up with a way of how do I unscrew the setting lever to take out the stem if I wanted to take it out,
Right.
So I put a little hole into the bridge that goes over it, and then by unscrewing the top screw there, so this is one part, right? So
I say this,
unscrewing the top screw, you can take out the stem without taking off the plate that goes over it.
It's just
but
crazy.
The top screw and the screw down the bottom, this is one part, and then it goes around under the setting lever stem. Yeah, that took me a while, but it never got boring. It was all so much fun, It's just the thing that I came on this earth for doing, I sometimes think.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such inventiveness, isn't it? Really, Dan.
It's crazy.
You're faced with it. It's such inventiveness that as you said, you've done this with no interaction with anybody else. Your problem, you had to come up with a solution for this, Eva, and that's what makes this your watch stand out. It is actually it is a historic timepiece, I would say, because you have literally, in every sense of the word, you have bent the rules.
Well, what's really cool, I think what's really cool is she's really elusive, because she made her timepiece way back when it was the Dark Ages, and she got so much press everywhere because no one had ever achieved anything like this. She's a role model for all women watchmakers. Now, I did have a female watchmaker when I went to school at Wostep in Neuchâtel, and they knew all about you way back when. And I know you don't even realize the lives that you've touched, because we talk to people on the show, and we try to let them know exactly what I'm telling you, and we try to show them that they have touched so many lives, and they don't realize it. They just think, I was just locked in my room, in my cave, and I was trying to figure out how the stem would work. I don't know. It's beautiful. That's my watch. What do you mean? But no, you change people's lives. When you cross those boundaries of normalcy and push yourself like you were pushing yourself to do that marathon, it's the same thing. And someone else who might be coming up, who's a young watchmaker, who has somewhat of a dream, or they don't know their path yet, they just got bit by the bug, and that's where they're headed for the rest of their existence. They're looking at stuff that you've done, and you give them the ability to get there. You're the top. And then you're so elusive because you make this incredible piece, and then you disappear for a little while, and now you're back.
They don't let you go, they don't let you go, and that's.
I just got to let everybody know, like, you shouldn't change anything. The same timepiece yesterday, or today, still should win every award there is. It still should be as the top of all independents. It still should be on display at AHCI or UFC or wherever they want to make up some kind of organization for us to join or not join or whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter, because you also didn't do it inside the Swiss borders. And again, that's what I'm trying to show, that independent watchmaking now is in an explosive time. It's time for you to be at the forefront again, because we independence now it's not just a cool thing to do. We have a story, we have our life story to tell, and that's what people are interested in. Inside our timepiece, they're getting a time capsule of each and every one of us, and they're certainly getting that in your Arri watch. That's just, it's beyond that. And now you get a chance to tell people more than 8 paragraphs and somebody's interviewing you in a magazine. They're really seeing and connecting the face, the struggle, where you've been all over the globe, gaining knowledge, and then express it in your art. And so you need to know it's art. I know you know that, but you need to know that in nowadays independent watchmaking, we can do whatever we want. And we really don't have to answer to anybody else, because I think everyone that's a collector has figured out the whole corporate thing that is and was and what they jump on, and it's really not that cool anymore. What's cool is, being able to walk in my shop here and, checking in, like you said, it was cool. People would come by all the time. It was a really cool time. And that's the cool part of it. It's like being in a heavy metal band and you're at rehearsal, getting ready to go on tour, or you're writing a new album, and there's 10, 15 people that are allowed into the rehearsal room. That's cool. They want to be in the band. Can I get you guys a lunch? Can I buy you a beer? It's the same thing in independent watchmaking. People that come into my workshop, they want to come back again. I'm saving my money. Can I somehow, pre-order one of your timepieces? That's the coolness of it. It's the humanness of it, and it's the humanness of us, because they're seeing us put our humanness in that little time capsule that's going to go on their wrist. And the way that you or I or other people who are our peers build timepieces, we don't build them to make money. We don't build, everybody's got to eat, but we build them, we're building them true time capsules that if I pass away and you live forever and ever and ever, 2,000 years from now, if my watch is still on this planet and that dude slaps it on your bench, Eva can make and fix my watch with no problem, because that's how we design our watches. They're not manufactured to be manufactured. They're manufactured to last indefinitely. and anyone with competence can remake any part that there is inside our watches. And that's really what I'm trying to get across to other independents that might be looking to start their own timepiece and they spend time at the bench. You really got to design that piece just like that, because it has to last forever and ever and ever. That's what we represent, and that's what your timepiece is. It's magnificent.
Yeah.
But on a side note, tell me about your trips to the. No one talks about this. Okay, this is another thing. Tell me about your trip, and we're going to talk about the famous Hurley in Bienne, the little watch store in the basement. That when you're in, all go to the Swiss watch schools, that we all take you to the secret little society of the most famous little watch store in Bienne. So I know that you visited there, and we like to get rid of because it's an experience. Just so people, I'll set it up. So just so other people that aren't watchmakers know, it's a trip, man. It's like going in a little record store in the basement in the village of New York, and you did way back when, and you didn't know where it was, and there's no sign, and it's around the corner, and you're scared you're gonna get killed, going down the steps. Am I gonna get killed? Somebody gonna shoot me? And then you enter, and it's like, oh my God, like look at all these albums. But instead, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe all the tools this guy has for watchmaking, and so it's this place called Hurley in Bienne, and I know you visit there quite frequently. So.
Yeah, and that's actually where I got that bass movement, the record 302 from Maurizio. And he's the coolest guy, him and Herr Herrli, he's still there, he's retired, but he's still there. And you walk in and they have rooms and rooms full of parts, and you ask them for anything, and off the top of their head, without even going to the computer or anything, they just go to the other room over there, they pull out one little box and they find the part, or you ask them for the part of one movement and they know that another company used the same movement in a modified version, but those parts would be interchangeable, and they pull out a different movement and give you that part to be used in the watch that you need it for. It's absolutely
mind blowing.
Maurizio,
he'll pull out a movement and it has no stamp on it. Oh, this was a prototype and I got half of it, and he just knows where it was. You're looking for this wheel for the last 10 years to fix this guy's watch, and all you need is that wheel, and you don't feel like making it from scratch. And it's such a cool little place on earth. It really
sounds amazing.
Put it in perspective. My spare parts supplier in Sydney, he makes a trip over every year to go shopping with Maurizio and Mr. Herrli.
A lot of people.
Everybody knows him around the world, and
it's like a little secret, but not a secret.
That he's always gonna live. That he's gonna live forever. That's what I'm thinking.
I remember my first time there. Antoine Simonet, the inventor of the WOSEP course, he took me in there, and I had that feeling like, dude, what is this? Because he's brought me to he brought me to people's garages at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Also, because I'm a tool freak, looking for tools. Yeah. He goes, only you, Spitz. You're the only one that can come with me. This guy doesn't like humans. And then we get there, and it's like dark road, some guy's house, and he opens up the garage, and I'm looking around like, are you guys gonna kill me or something? Like, but and the guy's garage is just to the ceiling. He brought out like 4 watch factories, and he has, he would give Antoine, first dibs at it before the next day where he would offer it for sale. So it was the same kind of thing, and he was setting me up at Hurley's, and I saw it was a little store, but I'm like, well, what do they got in here? And it's just this wonderful place for us watchmakers, and it's just unbelievable.
Your heart opens up, and you just want to, you just want to hug him. I have a lot to thank him for. He's awesome, and he's the sweetest guy, huh?
So where is your new shop? Where is your new shop, and when can somebody start to place orders? I know you're starting up again to make this magnificent piece. Fill us in.
So in Australia, I had a workshop outside my home for a couple of years, but since then I'm working from home again. So my bedroom, if you want to call it that. Looks like a workshop, you know. I got all my machines in there, and that's how it works for me. And you know, Dan, what I wanted to say before, you said all these nice things about me, you know, and I never really, when you're in it, you don't really see it that way, you know. And I'm a mom, and I try to, you know, do watchmaking and child rearing and, you know, the household stuff and so on. You do everything, but you have the feeling that you don't do anything properly, you know, for a little while they're small, you know. But then so I decided to work from home again, and that's how it works for me. That's how I can work around the kids, and I can work at night if I can't sleep, you know. I can work on Sunday, and you know, basically it makes a lot of sense for me also, because I don't have that huge funding behind me, you know. So I thought I pump all my money into one rental place, you know, and I can use it all day, and I love it that way, because for me, work and private is all interconnected, you know. I love it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't stress me or anything. It's a part of my life, and I also particularly like that my boys are running around in my workshop, and that they're picking up things and maybe finding some inspiration for their lives, you know. I love that a lot better than being gone in the morning and coming home at night, you know.
Yeah, no, I remember my 8-year-old, my younger daughter, was the same way. I had her at the bench around 8 years old, like I was with my grandfather, and she was taking apart Rolexes, and people were freaking out watching her. So it's a wonderful feeling as a parent, and people should understand there's this magical word that all the other corporate people have nabbed onto called in-house movement. Okay, so truly, what Eva is doing, what I am doing, because Eva, like you, I prefer to have everything in my home. My whole first floor is my machine shop, is everything, but I have really big machines here as well. That stems from my uniqueness of my past, being on a tour bus since I was 13 years old, and being a night person. I'm used to 2-3 o'clock in the morning is no problem for me to be. That's where my inspiration.
13, you were on tour. At 13, you were on tour already?
Yeah, 13.
Wow.
13, I started, and it didn't stop until 2000, whatever, somewhere. And then I went back later on for a few. We did a reunion for 2-3 years, a couple world tours. And you know, I didn't want to be on that bus anymore, and get back to what I was, you know, what I really wanted to do. So in-house movement for an independent watchmaker is truly in-house. It's not, it shouldn't be abused. That term is so abused right now. We're truly in our homes making incredible art for the rest of the world. And that's,
we should change the definition to in-home, not movements. In-home movement. Yeah.
What Eva, what you're saying, it stands true. You've got to be really careful. We've talked about this, and I am also doing interviews like last week with people who aren't watchmakers who decide to start their own watch businesses. It's very dangerous to take other people's money and then be on that rat race to either pay them back or listen to what they tell you what to do, how many you have to produce each year, and I need my money back because something happened to my business or what it may be. What we're finding out throughout the years of independence, and you've been in it longer than I, but and I'm sure you've seen some of our friends and peers who start out like we are here, and then they do sell a decent amount, and then they take in a partner or someone, and then it's a disaster. And where they are again today, they made an about face. They might even be in their 70s. They're back in their home making in-house tourbillons. I know some gentlemen that just did this, and happier than ever.
Yeah.
There's no need to go through that windmill, because what we make is we only have to make between 2 and 5 watches a year to make ourselves happy, and it's possible to do in our home with the proper equipment. And now that equipment is a lot easier to get, as you know. Well, back then, right? We couldn't get Sierras back then. I don't know how you found one, but you were really lucky. But I'm sure it was a lot of money to have that shipped all the way to Australia.
and back, shipped around the world.
Shipped around the world.
I have heavier machines, and I actually do have, I don't know if you know that, I actually do have a CNC machine.
No, I didn't know that.
During my time in Sydney, I was with the Sydney Clockmaker Society. They're all they're fantastic clockmakers in Australia. Nobody knows about them. I'd like to actually give them some exposure. And one of them, Lindsay Drapsch, he made a CNC machine for me.
Wow.
I just still have to learn how to use the damn thing. You know, and that takes a lot of time. And I don't, if money didn't matter, I always like to consider that question. If money didn't matter, I would just take all the time that I needed to do a proper course and to learn it and to learn programming and drawing again properly, you know, from scratch. And
that's what I did. It took me about a year. I built my own machine, the machine that makes just the parts for the movement. I made that myself, my own design. But I had to go to school for CamWorks, for CAD, for CAM, and learn. And I feel that was the best thing I've ever done. I think it should be anyone that's in watchmaking school nowadays. When you graduate watchmaking school, you should immediately go into a year of CAD and CAM, because you're not going to survive without it, even in after-sales service, because now there's this whole vintage watch resurgence. What we call what me and you were just repairing now is vintage watches. But as you know, when you get into chronographs and the mounted minute recorder springs break, back then we just took those movements if we couldn't get the parts, and we put them aside and just said, sorry, sir, your watch can't be fixed. Now, because of CNC, even after sales service, they can remake those parts again rather swiftly. Instead of, sitting at your bench and doing it for a week, it's not profitable and the person wouldn't pay for that. But what we do in independent watchmaking, it can not just shorten your time, but every part you make, once you program it, the next person's timepiece, that part is exact, then the next part is exact. So number 7 ARRI, number 17 ARRI, your parts are going to be exactly the same, and it really is a game changer.
Yeah, but as I said, I still have to learn how to use it, huh? And it's not your classic CNC machine. It's also he sold it to me for mace rates. He built it up from a machine that was that he imported, that was actually made for the Russian market, and it was sort of a CNC ready type of machine, and he changed a couple of things about it. It had a gear head, and he replaced it with a water-cooled 24,000 revs per minute spindle. He fitted the power supply for a Gecko drive, and he made a couple of changes to that, and I have it sitting at home, and I love it. But I have my boys with me, when do I find the time to take off to go to some school and learn programming, for 3 months or so, what it would take at least, to get started. Like in Australia, I went to visit Lindsay a couple of times, and we did practice. He made the same machine for himself also, and we did practice together. But he's in Canberra, not in Sydney.
Well,
I'll get there. I'm
just so you don't get frustrated. Just what I was going to say. Just so you don't get frustrated. You already know CAD, so to learn, maybe switch over to SolidWorks or whatever you work in is okay. But once to do the CAM nowadays, you don't have to sit and write all the code. It can manufacture 95% of the code with the press of a button from the part that you design. Sometimes it doesn't work perfectly, so you do have to know code to go back in to refix the code that might not. But don't think like 10 years ago. It's pretty much, your part's done, and it will spit out thousands and thousands of lines of code for you. So it might not be as long as a learning curve for someone like you as anyone else, and well worth it.
Well, I was thinking of finding somebody who who could come to me and explain my own machine to me and teach me, you know. My older son, he is 13 now, and he's very much into computers and programming, and so I thought, I'm going to put his brains to use, and he can learn, and he can teach me, you know. What do you have kids for?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you got a built-in babysitter too, so you're good.
And you know, a machine like this that sort of brings the independent into independent watchmaking, you know, because as you said before, it's a good idea to never borrow any money, and that's why it took me so long to build the prototype, because I always took in repairs and restorations, always, you know, to finance my projects. Because when you borrow money off someone, you enslave yourself. You're not independent anymore, you know, and then it starts to suck. It's not fun anymore.
Your art is what suffers, because you can't. You once again you're going to be stifled. And what I've been trying to express to those who are listening, who are watchmakers, who are collectors, is to fix the term of what everyone thinks CNC is in independent watchmaking. Our CNC machines that we use, we call them prototype machines. They're not make 500 parts, you know, at a time, and they just fall out into my hand and they're done and we just assemble a watch. It's just the ability for us to, once we spend those months and months and months to program whatever that part may be, it could be your main plate, you know, that every main plate thereafter, once we get that first one perfect, or maybe the second one, it's the little things that we keep, you know, correcting little mistakes. Once we get that first or second one perfect, everyone after for the next 20 years is perfect. All the holes will align perfect. Everything is perfect unless something happens to the machine. And that really is what has changed independent watchmaking. It's enabled people in Japan to manufacture with precision, where companies are looking at someone like Hajime Osaka in Japan going, how is it even possible you're making 30 watches a year? You're not in Switzerland. How is it possible? Because he took the time, he stopped, he learned how to you know, do CAD and CAM. He built his own machine. Same with Mark Jenny, same thing. He's still prototyping. It just opens up a whole new world, and it eases our brain a lot to have those parts in precision on our bench. But we have to know that those parts come off. I've been showing everyone on my Instagram how they come off the machine, because I want them to know it looks like a part, kinda, you know, it's still as raw, almost as if we made it by hand. So it's not a bubblegum machine where it's just spitting it out in my hand. But it shortens that lifespan, where you could make 5 or 6 Aries a year instead of 1 once you program it.
Speaking of Eva,
that's what you want, you know? Yeah. Oh, Johnny, I can't hear you properly. But you know what I wanted to say? A part that comes out of the CNC machine, it's still raw, you know? It looks like a piece of shrapnel, and it takes 5 times as long to make it to fit afterwards and to finish it, you know? But what the prototype, what did you call it? As a CNC machine for prototyping, what that helps us to achieve is that we can make our watches in a little bit less time, you know. Instead of using the saw, we can use the mill, you know, or you can make it as accurate on a manual machine, you know. I made all my watches manually so far. I never used CNC, you know. You can make it as accurate, but it takes a lot longer. And the CNC brings us more towards making it financially viable for us to keep doing it, you know. That's it. It's not that it spits out a finished piece or so at all.
Yeah.
Exactly. So wait, let's talk about music a little bit. You said, obviously in the beginning, you said you listened to some of my old music, but when you were younger, what did you listen to? Most importantly, I like to ask watchmakers what they listen to, if they listen to music while they're working, and maybe some funny stories. Maybe you sat next to another watchmaker somewhere in a company like Ulysses Nardin, and they listened to something. So give us a little background of your musical prowess.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of metal back in the day. Yeah, not today occasionally. Now I get to hear more of the boys' music. But back in the day, I used to listen to Motorhead mainly, Megadeth, ZZ Top. Who else? AC/DC, of course. Who else?
Big bad.
A couple of the guitarists, and I had your record, and records. How different were those times? Wasn't it a prick to always get up and turn the record over?
Yeah.
But now I was a metalhead, and in fact, I met my husband at Metal for the Brain in Canberra. That was a festival that went on for a couple of days, and it was called Metal for the Brain because in one of the first festivals there was a fist fight and someone got brain damaged as a result of it, and from then on they called it Metal for the Brain, and part of the money it brought in was donated towards people with brain injury. So yeah, there's a bit of a background.
So did you ever go to metal shows back then? Did you see me play live at all?
I didn't see you play live. No, I didn't see you play live. Who did I see play live?
Did you see Motorhead?
Of course, I was backstage. Then. I don't know how that happened. A guy came out and he gave me his backstage pass and he was totally frustrated because Lemmy wouldn't let in any guys. He only let in girls. So he gave me that backstage pass and I was backstage. And he was just there with, the other two, they just came out of the shower, and were checking out the women. And he was kicking back, no shower, nothing. He was just playing flippers.
Yeah, flippers.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't talk to anyone or so, but it was just funny.
I'll tell you a funny.
I tried several times.
I'll tell you a funny Lemmy story. Obviously, we toured with them many times, but we were actually in America doing pre-production in California for a tour or something. I can't remember. And it was us, Motley Crue, and Lemmy in the same rehearsal place. And I love to play Asteroids, that way old game that's in black and white. And he is Asteroids king. He is known throughout all asteroid lands as he is Asteroid king. So we would sit there, I don't know how many hours and hours and hours, and just play Asteroids. He could go like all day, and it would be the same game. And he just sitting there, and he was Lemmy, but he cut his jean shorts to like Dixie. What was that? Those Dixie shorts, from that TV show. So it's like you walk in the room. We would sit there in the entranceway for other bands that were coming in for the first time. They were loading their gear in, or the roadies or whatnot, and they would look to their right, and there's Lemmy in his short shorts, banging the machine like this. And it's Lemmy in short shorts. The best. He's just the best. He just didn't care. He's just like himself. He's like, I'm Lemmy. That's just the way.
What a legend! What a legend!
A great. He was just the sweetest, nicest guy, and just wanted people to know that of his Asteroids. His incredible Asteroids. He kicked my ass every time, multiple times around the world. He's mind blowing. And I'm pretty good.
I would still pick him. Yeah, there was a dark day when he went. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he influenced so many of us, and like what I'm trying to tell you, he didn't know it. We would come over from America in those days, and us and Metallica on tour, and we would take him on tour with us, and just because we were exploding. We were the American band exploding, so let's say through the UK, and we tried to tell him like what the influence he was on us. Like I'm trying to tell you the influence that you made on all watchmakers, especially female watchmakers. I know some female watchmakers that are just coming out of school, working on Rolexes, and you are a huge role model. And we're just glad to have you back in any capacity. And anyone that has a chance to pre-order or order one of your Aries, you should be lining up in line. I'm telling you, you should be lining up in line. Because if Ava decides that she's going to make more than one or two a year, you need to get in line and place those orders and get her back in her bedroom working full time.
Yeah. What are your plans?
I really thank you for saying that, because I got a little bit sidetracked the last couple of years, since I moved back to Europe. It was not that easy moving with the two boys and the whole entire workshop and stuff. And it, I took on different projects for others, but I love what you're saying tonight, and it really means a lot to me because it is my life and it is what I want to do. And I find over and over, it's reflected back to me by the people who don't want to let me go, and I still get emails from people who love my work and so, and it's a really lovely confirmation for me that this is my thing to do, I always knew it. I just got so snowed under with all kinds of other stuff, that I got a little bit sidetracked, but I know that it's my thing to do.
But we fully understand that. We're human and we are artists, so sometimes we need some time off. I've done the same thing. I got frustrated in after-sales service. But I think you can see now not just the importance of independent watchmaking, but really we've arrived and we are the top now. Okay, it's not the Patek Philippe's, the Audemars Piguets, all that corporate crap is done now. Everyone sees through the smoke and mirrors that it was. And I'm allowed to speak about it because I just don't give a crap. I don't have to give a crap. I don't have to answer to anybody. And that's what independence truly is. And it is not a revival. It's the next level of what this was between the 1700s and early 1800s, when this is the way it was.
Yeah.
Small little independence, either one person or two or three persons. For me, it's been a struggle because I'm in the United States of America, where there's nothing here. It's very rare to have the machines that I have here. I spent almost 2 years restoring them myself, and my plan is to help maybe one or two watchmakers and have them come aboard here, American watchmakers coming out of traditional schools, to get them on their feet and help me produce a little bit. But you have the use of my shop 24 hours a day to start your own timepiece, because it's not just expensive to get the machines here. You have to buy 2 or 3 Chablin 70s from somewhere to put them together, and it's just a nightmare to get them here from Switzerland, and all the other tooling we need. So get people and show the rest of the world that there is kick-ass American watchmakers, and that I'm an American, so I know there is. So we need to get that out there. I know someone in Australia, my friend from Rebelled, I think that's how you say it, Rebelled Watches. He's doing the same thing. He's the first Australian watch company making their own timepiece in the history of Australia. He's making a huge impact, and we're all independents doing it our own way, and that's what really counts. And you've set that path a long time ago. When there was you and Thomas and Paul Gerber and the crazy V&A Holte, who I know you're friends with him. All those thrash metal dudes, I call them, because they were like the beginning of thrash. You were intertwined with all that, and you need to be at the forefront now, because we're all at the forefront now.
Absolutely. And from my point of view, can you hear me okay, guys? Yeah?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, super. Wow, I'm back. From my point of view, I think that I have been following the independent watchmaking scene for the last 12, 15 years, and I have seen a momentum building, and it's been building and building, and your time is definitely now. The internet has been a fantastic leveler, so it doesn't matter if you're Rolex and you have a 200 million euro advertising budget per annum. If you can use the internet to your advantage, you can level those odds considerably. And I think that's what has been happening over the last number of years. And the independent sector has never been stronger since the early days of watchmaking, when everybody was independent. So I think it's fantastic. And I wanted to ask you, Eva, as well. Ari is making a return, yes?
Yes. I have to move first. I have to move my home and my workshop, unfortunately, because we're living in a super nice apartment with a huge rooftop terrace. But the son of the owner has decided that he wants to move in now. So I'll be moving again. But after that, yeah, my return was planned for now.
First of May, yeah.
A little bit postponed, but only temporarily,
Hopefully. And can I ask another question, because you're not you are a pioneer in women's independent watchmaking, but you had people like Saskia Maika Bouvier, she made some beautiful pieces too back around the same time, about 7 or 8 years ago. I'd love to see her making a comeback as well, because I think that maybe what she was doing, what you were doing, wasn't fully appreciated by the collectors. Collectors are so much more educated, so much more informed now, and they can identify the absolute specialty that they have, that Ari is. And I think it's fantastic to be speaking to you again now, years after Ari first made its debut, and we're looking at, hopefully in the near future, when you've got settled down and you've got your feet on the ground again, and you can start getting back to work again and get your amazing work back out onto the market, because I think your time is now. And the same with you, Dan. Obviously, you're aware of this. You know that it's the independent has never been stronger.
Mm-hmm. Well, Eva was 10 years ahead of the time. Like I said, the watch still is predominantly still at the top right now. She's 10 years ahead of her time. But now is the time where she can post on Instagram like everybody else, showing what she's doing that day. And people are gonna be like, who is this crazy girl? Where did she come from? What school did she just graduate school? No, she's
what I wanted to say before, you mentioned, that companies like Rolex, they have that huge marketing budget,
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, they need it, they need to market their watches.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't need it. I don't have to market. I have to build the things, I have to build them, and they will be sold. I don't have to market them.
But Eva, in our time now,
our pieces, they speak for themselves,
We
need expression.
In our time now as independents, we need to give back like Thomas gave to you. And the way we give back now is hopefully daily, or every so often, pictures of what we're doing. Other women watchmakers will look up to you. They want to see, and they can learn from short little videos, maybe a YouTube channel. It does take some time away from what you're doing, but it could change somebody else's life. Like my friend Luke and Cyril from Arts Mechanics, and Cyril, they started a project that I'm part of. That's the first ever watchmaking open source project, where they took 4 years to develop the escapement that I'm using, that I'm modifying and using my own way. The 1800s escapement from Louis Richard. It took 4 years, but to the proper watchmaker, we have a website, and we will give you all the CAD CAM files for you to take that escapement, and it's completely open source, and place it inside your timepiece. There's no patents, there's no problems, there's no registrations, as long as you build upon it and make your own, and it's called SPEMP. And so that's what watchmaking really is about. It's about changing somebody else's life and giving them their dream. It will be really wonderful to follow you. I know I'll be following along if you posted some pictures.
We follow each other. I follow you too. I think it's awesome, especially since you come from the showbiz. You make everything very public, and I think that's a really cool new wind, and you're very friendly with everybody, you're not trying to hide anything. You're trying to get everybody together and just enjoy it, and just enjoy the whole ride, There's nothing.
That's what I did with my music. When there was all this fake music, all these hair bands, and the people were putting hairspray in their hair and dressing up with makeup. So that wasn't the real. That wasn't the real them, and the music wasn't really their music, because it was a record company telling them what to do and somebody writing their song and a producer then changing that song and making that song his song. So in reflective ways, that has nothing to do with the actual human those people really were. So thrash metal came about, us and Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth, the big four, because we looked at that and said, that's not them. We want to be us. This is what we are us. You know, this is my t-shirt. This is if I want to wear this on stage, I'm going to go like this on stage. And I feel that's what independent watchmaking is. That's what it should be. We should have shows like this with other people. It's not just behind the scenes, but it's behind the scenes. And I want to hear about your humanness. What was your struggle? What was it like? Not just a 3-4 paragraph interview by somebody like Johnny, who can just twist things the wrong way. Johnny doesn't. Johnny's a kick-ass writer. That's why everybody hires him. He's the best in the business. Yeah. He wrote something about my watch. I read it. I was like, it's perfect. Like, how did he do that?
Excellent. Thank you.
Your style, Johnny, is really high-end, very elegantly written, and I love to read it. And I love the exposure that you're giving to independence. I love it.
I have to give credit to my wife, Sylvia, who wrote that article today regarding your watch. And so Sylvia behind me is Sylvia has been a fantastic support. She is very creative. She has a lovely writing style of her own, and the two of us complement each other, although we don't always acknowledge that fact, you know, but it's still it's brilliant. I have to definitely mention her. And it's great being actually a part of that the two of us can discuss these watches. We could talk about what we were going to talk about tonight. And, you know, even as I said, we were discussing you there about 2 hours before we started. And my daughter was really impressed with what. So it's a family thing as well in the writing. In the same way as you're getting your son into hopefully into the computers, the digital the design aspect of it. So no, it's fantastic. So yes, I couldn't let that go without giving credit to my good wife, or my dinner will be in the dog. And that also
we get, by having Johnny as my partner in these interviews, it gets a whole new perspective, because before we start, we talk a lot of he has a different perspective because he's dealing with those corporate magazines. What do they want to see from independent watchmaking? What makes their clients gain interest in a certain timepiece? Why is it they're interested in a Carrie Voutilanen over somebody else's timepiece? Even though we're not trying to be corporate in that way, he's a whole nother aspect of insight that we all need to tap into, because he's the most brilliant writer I know in all
thanks, man.
Industry. He writes in a completely different fashion. You said that. I said that to him before. He writes completely different. It's elegant. That's the word.
It comes from there, because
he's gonna start crying in a minute.
I will. Crying.
And also, just so you know, Carrie Voutilanen works in his house.
Yes.
Lives in his house. It's a mansion. It's a giant house.
It's a nice place.
I've been there.
His movements are also in-house, you know? It's the guy that got to go down the street and around the corner and put the key in and open the door. Those aren't in-house movements.
Yeah. I think Carrie's a bit of a metalhead too, you know?
If it's your life and you enjoy it, you should mix business and private together. It's one thing, right?
Yeah. You're not working if you're doing something you love. And that is kind of how I look at what I do as well. Writing, I could do it at any time of the day or night. Because I love my subject matter. I love the people who I've come to meet through starting off with the likes of John and Stephen McGonigal here in Ireland, with Stephen McDonald, who's based in Belfast. And to know people like yourselves, to know Carrie, to know Antoine Prezioso, to know Bart and Tim, and I was speaking to Rebecca Struthers the other day as well, to all people that would like to bring through this little platform that we have here. And it's a fantastic community, and I love it. And it's completely separate from the big mainstream brands, from the global corporations. This is a completely different side of it, and it is infectious and it is fascinating, and I damn well love it. There you go.
And you know what? I really hope, guys, that's what I wanted to tell you. I really hope that you get many, many more watchmakers to continue with this show, because I love all the background stories. I love it. And I hope that you find many, many more before you move over to cars or something like this.
Well, I don't know if anyone's going to top the...
because like you, Dan, or even like you, Johnny, you know, we get to meet a few of them, and I met Kari and I met Vianney, and I was also at John McGonagall's actually in Atea, and so, but I'd love to meet many more, and that's where your channel comes in, because you get all the little background stories without even leaving your home, you know, and so I hope that you continue with that for a long time.
You can find out your favorite watchmaker was pulled backstage by Lemmy's guys to come into the room
to play flippers. Yeah.
Where else are you going to hear that but on this show?
Awesome. That's awesome.
Well, all I can say, Eva, is the time is now. The collectors that are listening to this, and the collectors that will be listening to this later, if they're not listening to it live, I think we all know now that when some people, they get their first big check if they're work in the financial district or wherever their job may be. They usually go out and buy a Rolex, get them hooked, and they buy a Patek. Then they realize, like what you said, wow! But nowadays you can look and they can see inside the Patek where previously they couldn't, and they say, wow, you know, this is incredible. Then maybe they buy Audemars, and then they're like, what's next? And what independent watchmaking nowadays, what you started, what you changed from the infancy when you and the impact that you made is, we are now above all of that. We are the pinnacle people that are pushing the boundaries of micromechanical art. You pushed them way back when, and it's your timepiece is obviously still at the top of relevancy now, but that's where they'll end up. That's where we are. It's not what it was 15 years ago, Eva. It's not. It's not the struggle. Where am I going to sell one timepiece? We know what we are now, and we have the right and to say to people, if you want my art, you have to pay for my art. It would be nice if you prepaid for my art, so we can buy more machines, right? And have a little more of a comfort feeling. Because artists, I know this from music, we create better when we have less stress in our lives. So in the beginning, those first two pieces for a young watchmaker are very, very difficult if they're trying to have a side job and whatever they're trying to do. But once we get rolling and we do have some pre-orders, it gets easier, because we can create, we can stop and make something better we might not have made better before, because we had to get through it, to get those funds or whatever it may be. So we are at that peak. We are at a place in watchmaking history now, and we welcome you back in any capacity. We certainly place you
we welcome you.
It's to me. Really,
tell me one thing, Eva. Tell the women watchmakers or watchmakers who are female who would like to get into this, if you have any advice for them. You're so experienced, so any insight you could give would be really helpful to anybody.
Can't really think of anything, It's some people ask me why aren't there more women outside? I'm not even sure, other than we don't have your tunnel vision, guys. And, we get very emotionally attached, like I said before, that I want to buy my own watches back, or something like this. Other than that, I don't know what the difference is between guys and girls,
Yeah,
my grandfather was a physicist, and he probably put me on that path, When I was little, he would always tell us kids that we would be able to understand any sort of mechanism if we just look at it long enough, And he let me look into his grandfather clocks, and he showed me the wood turning lathe and all that sort of stuff. he probably put me on that path. Other than that, I can't really explain what it is, but it feels as if it's just coming through me. I love it, you know.
Yeah.
Like there's that clockmaker in Australia. He's a South African, and him and his family, they live 2 hours south of Sydney, and he is for me the pinnacle. He's built an astronomical clock for his client in the States, and he's been on it for I think 12 years. And every now and again I went to visit him, and he's nearing completion. It's got, I don't know, all the complications that it has, but it's a lot, you know. It's filling up half a room. And whenever he sends me updates with pictures or videos, I don't know why, but I start crying because it moves me so much, you know. Wow. And what he said before, a Patek or something, these watches, they're high, they're top end, you know. They're very high quality and they're very developed. Yeah. So with my watch, I run into problems all the time, and I find solutions. I don't know how good they are, but I find solutions. And so handmade watches, they have a soul to it that the industry pieces, they don't have so much, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But like this guy with the clock, he's been working on it for 12 years, and now he's in the finishing phase, which he always dreaded. And he sent me an Excel sheet today of the 6,400 parts that he's already finished. He's expecting to be finishing the clock by the end of the year, just to give you an idea. He sounds
a little bit like Mickey Ileta, who is the eccentric clockmaker, AHCI guy, who's just another wonderful character. It's just awesome indeed. But hey, listen, we are hitting 2 hours here, and but you know, it's been. I would love to say I would love to have you back again sometime, because I think that's the nature of what we want to do, is to have a kind of a round table that we can talk, and when we come back, we'll become friends, and our people get used to us, and you know, and it's good to promote the whole concept of independent watchmaking, to show the people behind it, to go behind the scenes, and to put a spotlight on the absolute, how fascinating, how addictive it is that you guys can work 7 days a week. You have no boss, you have nobody telling you what to do, and it's just, you gotta be there. You get up in the morning, you gotta go in and flick a few switches and get started. And to portray that, because I think some people, especially where I live, think watches are things, and it's not really interesting. But once you get to know what's going on behind the scenes, I think it changes that completely. So it's a classical art. And you know, you said that maybe someday we'll end up talking about cars. Hey, Eva, I think, you know, there'll still be watches. There'll still be watches when there are no cars. You know, when they're not making cars anymore, they'll still be making watches. They were making watches before cars, and they'll be making them after it as well. Hopefully, if we don't all screw up like so.
I just want to say, Eva's been a role model to myself and so many others. She's a trendsetter. We're glad to have her back, and you know,
with pleasure. I'd love to. Yeah.
Excellent. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you back in any capacity. You stand for what we are, and you open the doors for independent watchmaking when it wasn't cool. It was really hard to do, and you stepped out of the box way back when, and now you'll step out of it again. And we all support you, and that's you are what independent watchmaking is. And if there's anyone, and I've said this quietly to others, actually there really isn't anyone I've ever wanted to really collaborate with, but if there is anyone, there's only one, and I'm not cleaning the shit off my nose, pardon my language. it is you.
Wow.
You are, just to give you guys an idea of in watchmaking land and watchmaking brain and training and so forth, who the wacky people are. Yeah, there's V&A Holte and a couple others, but
yeah, we're gonna make a synonym out of your four initials, DASEL. We'll work on that, will we? And but
all right, everybody.
yeah, Eva, thank you very much indeed. By the way, Eva, whenever we close off here, if you want to hold on for a moment, we'll just say our goodbyes after that. So, so for everyone who has joined us tonight for another episode of In the Metal, let us just say thank you very, very much. I hope that you're enjoying it half as much as we are, and that you're getting the drift of what's going on in this incredible world of independent watchmaking. So I want to thank Dan Spitz, Dan the man, with that incredible piece of
balance wheel.
The balance wheel, the size of that. Wow.
Titanium.
The titanium balance wheel. So we'll get looking at those things and more heavy metal horological news every week with ourselves in the Metal. Eva, thank you so much for joining us. What a pleasure. What an honor. Dan, as ever, fantastic.
Peace out.
Bye, folks.